I accidentally shut.
Oh, you shut him down.
Yeah.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer by Supervisor Mastelier.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There we are. Heavenly Father, in this Christmas season, please help us remember that not only should we have peace among men, but also remember to extend this to all 52 weeks of the year. I take this opportunity to thank each of you for all you have done in the past and look forward to years of good service in the future. With this in mind, I wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year's. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we have roll call. Supervisor Dell is on his way. So he's en route. Him and Santa both. We'll see who gets here first, Supervisor Dell or Santa. I can tell you which one might be coming in faster. All right, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Supervisor Swaggle, second by Supervisor Kinnard. Any discussion of the agenda you have before you? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Would look for a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Supervisor Poppy, second by Supervisor Haskey. Any discussion, corrections, comments on the minutes which you have already reviewed? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Citizens input. Has anybody signed up?
Yes.
Very well.
The board will hear concerns members of the public wish to raise, but will not discuss or take action on any matter until the matter can be placed on an agenda with proper notice to the public. The board welcomes citizens to present their concerns to the board in a professional manner relevant to issues affecting Kewaunee County. Each citizen may take 3 minutes to present their concern, and the board has allotted a total of 20 minutes for this portion of the meeting. Please be mindful the board may halt any disruptive comments and any comments that are threatening, vulgar, or abusive. Matt Josky.
Good evening. I would like to take a moment to recognize and honor retired Deputy Rebecca Altofterhide, or as most in this community knew her as Officer Becky. Becky started her career in law enforcement in 1989 as the first female deputy at the Kewaunee County Sheriff's Department. She began her time with the Sheriff's Department, as many of us did, in the Jail and Dispatch Division, progressing to investigator, where she specialized in sensitive crimes and those crimes involving children. It was her love for our children that led her to begin the school liaison program, working in all 3 school districts over the many years, teaching Counteract, DARE, and numerous safety programs throughout the seasons. Where there were opportunities to lead, there would be Becky. Whether it was serving as president for the Wisconsin Juvenile Officers Association, or later in her numerous roles in her faith community, Becky was always ready to assist with that warming smile and comforting nature. Even in her battle with cancer, she showed enduring leadership as a living example to what faith looks like in times of adversity. No cancer or pain or discomfort could hope to claim victory over her amazing soul as she defied the odds and battled on courageously. I had the honor of visiting Becky shortly before she passed, and was once again in awe of her undiminished faith and spirit. She smiled as we parted ways with a simple, "Be seen ya." Officer Becky began her next amazing journey in the early morning hours of December 18th, 2021. On behalf of the Kewaunee County Sheriff's Department and a grateful county, thank you, Becky. We are a better community because of you.
Thank you. Before we move on, we need everyone to sign in again. Sorry. Small technical difficulty.
Just
So
yes, confirm.
That also technically means that Supervisor Dell was not late. And we were wondering, Supervisor Dell, why you bothered sending a message that you were going to be 5 minutes late. We had assumed that. If you're not going to be 5 minutes late some night, send a message. That way we won't be surprised. Anybody else?
It froze.
Is there anybody else that signed up to speak to the board? Does anyone else wish to speak to the board? Does anyone else wish to speak to the board? Anyone wish to speak? All right, we'll move on with appointments.
To Kewaunee County EMS Council. Do you want to do them together?
We'll do them all together.
Okay. And the Kewaunee County Jail Strategy Committee, Tom Romden.
Do I have a motion? Supervisor Swagel? Do I have a second? Supervisor Masteler? Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We'll move on to annual reports and other reports to the board as requested. Mr. Felt?
I have nothing at this time, Mr. Chair.
Very well. Moving on to committee reports. I'm going to take all of those together since all of you want to get to your Christmas party here tonight. Are there any questions on any of the minutes that you have received previously? Any questions on any of them? Sydney, is there anything we need to know about COVID at the moment other than I see numbers are
You guys got the report last Friday. Cases are still going up. Wisconsin is the worst state in the nation right now for hospitalizations and severe illness. So we're hoping to see that turn around. Omicron has surfaced, and most of you may have realized that on Monday, the state put out an official advisory in regard to that. That advisory really doesn't change anything that we've been doing all along. It simply states that people should continue to mask. They're really encouraging vaccination. They're encouraging small gatherings and to just be very cautious with the amount of cases that are out there. So our health department will continue to, encourage that. Throughout the holidays, we will have vaccination clinics available. So we vaccinated today, and we're also going to be vaccinating next week on 2 separate days. So the appointments are still available for anyone that is interested. School cases, it's going to be a good thing to see the schools close down a little bit because the kids have had some high numbers and parents continue to have those high numbers. As of Monday within the state, there were 19 cases of the new variant, and how they're going about determining whether it's on the rise or not. Similar to Delta, the top 4 labs within the state are doing typing and cross matching on about 5 to 10% of the cases coming through. And then when they see that, they can determine whether it's specifically higher with Delta or this new variant that they're seeing right now. The majority of the cases in Wisconsin remained as a Delta, but Omicron is here.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First, I would assume that it probably goes without saying that a major part of the reason why Wisconsin is the worst in the nation is because, well, it's cold right now and people are shut in, and so
Correct.
that
So
impacts
Yep.
transmission. versus in
transmission goes up
Florida.
with indoor activities, but we still remain a little bit lower nationally in vaccination rates. We hit about 60% this week, so that's an improvement, but it still remains low.
Okay. The other question I had, hours and with all of the tracking that has to go on, you're the only salaried person in the department.
Correct.
So how is this impacting your department? How is this impacting you with weekends and all of that? Is it like it was before, or has the way that that's managed changed?
Right now we have 3 to 4 contact tracers that are assisting with cases. So during the week, they handle the majority of those cases. Our staff within our office does backup on any of those days when we see high case numbers. On the weekends, we do not contact trace on Sundays. I do check the caseload on Saturdays. If it is extremely high, I do take care of some of those. Over the holidays, because our contact tracers are not county employees, they are not getting the additional days off. So like the 23rd, the 27th, the 31st, that all fall as holidays for us this year. Contact tracers will be working and I'll be doing backup on those days.
So is it becoming more manageable for your department, or?
I think we're just getting better at what we do.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Cindy? Thank you. Any other questions on any of the reports? All right, I don't think we need a recess. We'll move on to first reading of ordinance. We have none. Consideration of resolutions. We will move on to resolution A.
A resolution approving broadband expansion grant and contracts with Hilbert Communications LLC. Fiscal impact, $1,402,537 grant from PSD, $400,725 contribution from Hilbert, $2,203,986 loan to Hilbert Communications LLC at 3% interest. Total project budget $4,007,248.
Do I have a motion? Supervisor Romden?
Move to approve the resolution.
Is there a second? Supervisor Augustine? Do we have questions on the resolution? Do we need a 20-second summary of this, Mr. Felt?
If you would like, Mr. Chair, otherwise I'm going to guess I could probably answer it from whatever questions come up as well.
Well, let's see what questions we have. Supervisor Romden?
I know we discussed this at the Personnel Committee, but just for the full board's information, Scott, could you tell us where the loan, the $2 million loan is, where the funds are coming from?
It is my intent, though I will have to get final approval from the board, is originally the intent was to use funds from the Economic Development Fund, or let's call it the Dominion dollars. But we also know that the ARPA dollars allows that the county can use ARPA dollars specifically for broadband. So what my intent would be is to have the county use the ARPA dollars for the broadband loan here. And therefore that frees up that Economic Development Fund money for other purposes. And for those that are unaware, the amount of the loan right now is $2.2 million in change at a 3% interest rate over the course of 12 years, which means that generates roughly about $415,000 in interest, if my math is correct.
So we will make $415,000 ultimately on this, the county.
Over 12 years,
And
yes, sir.
And that's just this part of it. That's not
Yes,
the previous.
that is not including the $960,000 that we have a loan that we're already starting to receive payments on.
So in the end, the county will have made we will have profited approximately $500,000 on all of this, while dramatically improving internet access for the citizens.
I believe that's a fair statement, Mr. Chair.
Pretty extraordinary. I say that as a resident of the village of Luxembourg who just got his tax bill where they paid $850,000 to a internet company to improve internet. So you do the math on that, and we saw 69. That was the first thing they listed as the reason for the 69.5% increase in the levy, which for me and most of my neighbors was about an extra $1,000 this year. So I'm sure not to go into a lot of history for those who are new to the board, but it was originally proposed that the county was going to spend $1 million. And there were myself and others who said, no, there has to be a better way. And we ultimately ended up making $500,000 while achieving the same results. Pretty extraordinary. And so we can be very, very thankful. And a lot of that credit goes, of course, to my predecessor, Chairman Widener, who appointed the broadband committee, and we were able to get this done and not put such an incredible burden on the taxpayers. So we can be very thankful that there was such responsible actions and such responsible spending or not spending on the part of the county board. Other questions? Supervisor Baker.
Is Hilbert and Bug Tussle, are they the same firm?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes, Hilbert Communications. Bug Tussle is a subsidiary. They also have a tower company. They have a cable installation company, fiber cable installation company. So yes, they are they're the same.
So did the previous agreement
was with Hilbert as well?
Was also with Hilbert. Okay, thank you.
Same company. They've been. We've had a very good relationship with Bug Tussle, and you know, everything I have heard. I talked to a lot of people who are very, very pleased and have really seen a dramatic improvement in their service. And I say that as a customer as well of Bug Tussle. Yes, sir.
Just a clarification question for Scott. Bug Tussle was coming through with towers, and that was supposed to all be signals, not hardline fiber. Is that correct? Now they're doing fiber?
Correct.
I'll do it in a couple different ways, Supervisor Kennard. First, towers we'll call fixed wireless because that's the terminology they use. So the first application for the 960 was for fixed wireless towers, of which roughly a half a dozen that they would construct, and then equipment on another half dozen to provide roughly about an 80% coverage of the county to help with speeds and capacity and backhaul. The second grant award, which we're talking about with this agreement, is to provide fiber to those towers. So therefore that can increase the speed and the capacity of those towers. And this is for just the first half of it, which is 67.1 miles of fiber optic cable. There's another 40 plus that is looking to be done in phase 2. In that same respect, in my conversations with Steve Schneider, who's the CEO of Bug Tussle, before they weren't thinking of getting into what is called the last mile or the fiber to the home or to the premises. But they are now examining that because of the amount of government money that is being invested or put out there to bring fiber to the premises. So that's not going to change their commitment to us. The only thing it may do is expand their commitment to us. If additional funds are available and therefore grant funding or loan funding or some combination could allow them to also get into the fiber to the home or fiber to the premises, they are looking at that as well. But that fiber to the premises is not about this agreement here.
And in some cases, I mean, I'm already receiving 60 meg service from them. You know, when you get to 60 meg, that's pretty fast.
And what they're also looking at, if I may, Mr. Chair, is where they're also doing the fiber routes. If there is a customer that comes along their fiber route, a large farm or a business, then they are more than willing to connect straight from their fiber route to that customer. And they'd work out whatever agreement or contract that they would have with that individual customer. But otherwise, again, the fiber is to the tower, but if there is some ability to provide service to customers along their fiber route, they're open to that as well.
Yeah, so this is a I mean, we are going to continue to work towards more and more improvements in a way that is sensible and allows us to be good stewards of taxpayer money for sure. So, but it's a constant improvement. And again, I greatly appreciate the supervisors who were involved in this way back and were able to find a great, something that's really working well for the county. And Mr. Felt, of course, has been very involved in this, and Mr. Wisnicki's outstanding contractual contract writing skills have made sure that we've been well represented. Any other questions?
I only have one small other item, Mr. Chair, in this is if we keep our fingers crossed, we still have a federal grant out there.
Yes.
And if that goes our way, that also will be a game changer for Kewaunee County. I don't want to, jinx it by talking about it. I'm just saying, if we say a New Year's prayer, let's hope that grant application gets awarded.
Yes, definitely. And again, I can't emphasize enough as one who is seeing nearly $1 million spent by the governing body in the village versus what we're doing in the county where we're getting the grants. Let me tell you, you get your tax bill, it's a huge, huge difference. I would much, much rather see us continue down this path because I don't want to have another 1,000 added to the tax bill. All right, any other questions? Although we will, so are we prepared? Register your vote, please. You need to push yes or no and confirm, right? And mine is not registering. Looks like a lot of them aren't registering. In fact, I don't see any that are. Supervisor Swaggle still isn't here. Are you going to join us tonight, Supervisor Swaggle? I hope so. I hope so too. I hope so too. We miss you. You're locked. You're locked. You got it. So Supervisor Lukes and Supervisor Wokos. Okay. Okay, so we have 18 yes, 1 no, correct? And there we go. Motion carries. Still can't manage to get a unanimous vote, but that's okay. We'll move on to the next resolution.
A resolution authorizing Kewaunee County to enter into the settlement agreements with McKesson Corporation, Cardinal Health, AmerisourceBergen Corporation, Johnson & Johnson, Janssen Pharmaceuticals, Ortho McNeil Janssen Pharmaceuticals, and Janssen Pharmaceutica agreed to the terms of the MOU allocating settlement proceeds and authorize entry into the MOU with Attorney General. Fiscal impact, $439,004.32 over a 9 to 18 year period.
Do I have a motion? Supervisor Vollenweider, is there a second? Supervisor Mastelier, discussion. Supervisor Teske.
When these funds arrive and they go into that new fund, new account, who's going to be in charge of that?
When you say in charge of it, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking.
Is it going to be to some committee to disperse those funds?
Yeah, it would be no different than, I'll give a very similar example, whether it's ARPA funds, whether it's the Dominion funds, it's put into a fund. Then what happens is either through a budget document or through some type of resolution, a recommendation is made to a committee and finally to the board. And then that approval of that request is made. And if it's approved, then disbursement is implemented. So for this type of funding, which would have to therefore be have some type of relationship to opioids, it won't be going therefore to maintenance or to the the county administrator's yacht fund. It won't go there. Instead, it would more than likely be human services or the sheriff or something to that respect in relationship with treating opioids or addressing the opioid problem. That recommendation would come to the committee and to the board. And then with their approval, if that's approved, then that's where the money would be allocated and then subsequently spent.
Okay.
I haven't.
Oh, go ahead.
I can go ahead. I just have another question. Let's, this is all settled and Kewaunee, I'm just going to use this as an example. Kewaunee County would get $500,000.
Mhm.
Okay. Is the attorney fees and whatever fees, is that going to come off beforehand? So like we would only get 450,000 then? Oh.
And the Corporation Counsel will correct me if I'm wrong. Lawyers always make sure they get their cut first before anyone else. So whatever we're getting, and there is no attorney's fees or administrative fees or anything else. That's the award to the county themselves.
So they're getting theirs before we are going to get ours.
Here's all the big pot. It's already been cut out what's going to attorneys, and here's what's going to the different counties.
Yeah, don't worry about the lawyers, Supervisor Teskey. They're going to
get.
Don't worry about the lawyers. They're going to get paid.
So, fine folk they are.
They're going to do okay in all of this. Supervisor Romden?
Just a question. In the heading of the resolution, it talks about the MOU. Does that mean a memorandum of understanding? Is that what that is?
Yes, there's four documents. We have to approve the settlement with Janssen & Janssen. Then we have to approve a settlement with the distributors. And then there's an MOU with the Attorney General. And there's a fourth item in there that is approved as well. I think there's a MOU among the local units of government. So all the locals have to sign an MOU that they're agreeing to this. We have to sign an MOU that we're agreeing to split up the money with the state through the AG. And then we're agreeing to the two separate settlements. There's four documents, and you're authorizing Mr. Felt to sign those documents on the county's behalf.
Thank you.
Supervisor Lukes?
How did they come up with a number for each county?
So that's a good question. And the lawyer spent a lot of time explaining this. It's population based in one part, but it's also based upon the deaths and impacts. So they put a bunch of factors into a bucket, and then they came up with this number. So it's partly population, partly the effects, if some areas of the state were harder hit with this than others. So that was a factor along those lines. Yeah, then they came up with this, and this was subject to wide debate. But again, they would tell you there's no perfect way to do this. And we fought about it for months. And at the end of the day, they're like, well, this is as close as we're going to get to a fair resolution. And that's how they did it. And part of it was a compromise too, because originally it was all the counties, and then all of a sudden late to the game was a couple of these cities jumped in. So in order to get these settlements done, the distributors and Janssen & Janssen demanded that basically we have 100% or near 100% approval. So we can't have any holdouts, otherwise it holds up the whole deal. So there was some compromise in there. And then you also you throw in a Milwaukee County, Milwaukee City. They're the big fish in the pond, so they threw their weight around a little bit. But again, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So Milwaukee threw their weight around, but at the end of the day, if we don't come to term, they don't get any money either. So there was plenty of attorneys here fighting this out for everyone. And again, the attorneys would say, while reasonable people could disagree if it was fair or not, that's what they came up with. And generally, if you look at the population numbers to the dollar numbers, it tracks pretty closely. So ultimately, it was primarily population based.
And if I can add on to Corporation Counsel Supervisor Lukes, is previous to this all being done, when the suit was first being filed, Wisconsin Counties Association was one of the lead states in starting to do this. And from the beginning, it was a principle that was going to be stuck to, that if there was a settlement, the dollars would be going straight to the counties and not be filtered through the state like the tobacco settlement money was. And so counties received 70% of the settlement for the state of Wisconsin, and those settlement funds go directly to those counties. That is a higher percentage than any other state in the country. The legislature also passed a not a resolution, but some legislation to do that. The governor has signed it. So in that respect, the county is going to be well compensated for that. And yes, whenever you put together a formula, you can always put different things into a formula and weight them differently. But overall, I think this is as best as possible is a fair and equitable settlement.
Other questions? Supervisor Teske.
Are those memorandum of understandings put together already? Were we supposed to see them?
I didn't attach them. If you want them, I can send it to you, but we're talking long documents. So the packet was 90 pages. I could probably add another 90 if you wanted. But it basically says that we agree to the terms of the settlement agreements, that we will spend the money in accordance to the rules. We have to use it, generally speaking, for the abatement of the opioid problem, which is broad. I mean, you can do it for law enforcement or for AODA purposes and so on. So I did not specifically attach those.
So we can buy police cars with that.
I don't want to be too cute by half, Mr. Chair.
We're abating the opioid crisis by providing squad cars to take them to jail. Supervisor Baker.
Any word on what the other 30% is, or how it's going to be dispersed by the state?
No word. I suspect it'll go to the Department of Health Services, and they will probably, through some grant processes, we might have an opportunity to apply for additional grants. I'm not saying that you should take that for granted. The state will probably use some of the money for their own ends, but I suspect some of the money will again be available through grant opportunities.
Other questions? All right, register our votes. You may register. Yes, no, yes or no, then confirm. Supervisor Wilkos. All in favor, motion passes. Wow, look at that, a unanimous vote. Somebody want to get a picture of that for me? All right. Moving on to the next resolution.
A resolution approving transfer of funds, Sheriff's Department, Promo and Rec, Public Health. Fiscal impact budget adjustment transfers in the amount of $459,651.
Do I have a motion? Supervisor Haskey, second. Supervisor Baker, discussion. All right. Yes, Supervisor Swagel.
Why are we doing this? Wasn't the budget, is this a mistake to fix a budget way this should be spent or portrayed, or what?
Oh, no mistakes, only opportunities.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Mr. Felt.
That's actually a very good question.
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Swagel. What happens is when we set a budget, 12 months ago, what we try to do is we're making our best estimate as to specific line items where things will go. And I'll give probably the one that happens the most often, which is within the Sheriff's Department. So within the Sheriff's Department, what happens is we have a certain amount of staff turnover, which means that there is empty shifts that have to be covered. So what will happen is we'll use existing staff, which means we'll have to pay them overtime. And our overtime line, therefore, we exceed our overtime line, the total money that's in the line, the budget line for overtime. But in that same respect, we're under the budget line for wages and salaries. So to give a more accurate picture, what we do is we then do a transfer of money from the wages line over to the salary line. Or what can happen is there may be some other costs, whether for heating or water or something like that. So there's the rearranging within the budget lines. But what's the most important thing, which is the case, is that we're not asked, the budget transfers that we're talking about are not exceeding their general budget. More often than not, if they are, then we have a specific request that money be taken from a fund or from a general fund to cover that budget overage. Am I making sense?
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right. Please register your vote. Supervisor Agamite. All right, all in favor, motion passes. All right, continuing our Christmas theme, let's move on to the request for the highway department.
Purchase highway equipment, a 2024 Freightliner 114 SD chassis. Fiscal impact, $128,600 from highway internal funds.
Why did I turn straight to my left? Supervisor Poppy, motion. Is there a second? Supervisor Vollenweider. Discussion. All right, you may read. Are we prepared to? All right. All right, 18 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries. Let's move on to the next resolution if you are prepared.
Resolution to purchase highway equipment, Ford F-250, Ford F-350, Ford F-450. Fiscal impact, $118,006 from highway internal funds.
Supervisor Poppy again. Is there a second? Supervisor Mastelier. Discussion. Supervisor Dell.
I was just wondering, is there a reason that we need so many trucks this year? Are we replacing like a lot of trucks, or just curious?
Does Mr. Every wish, you want to handle that, Supervisor Poppy, or Mr. Every wish to speak to that? Is that on?
Can you hear me? Within our capital purchase program for the 2022 fiscal year, there is three pickup trucks that are scheduled to be purchased to replace existing pickup trucks. You see there's various sizes. You have a 1-ton pickup truck and a couple other smaller ones that will be replacing very old pickup trucks with a lot of mileage on them. We're trying to upgrade trucks so that they can be multifaceted, which some of the ones that we'll be auctioning off in the future that are in the backup information provide some of the trucks that we're going to get rid of eventually once these trucks arrive. So these are, crew cab pickups that can fit more people in them, perform more operations, and getting rid of some of the excess pieces of equipment that we have. And now over the course of time, we've gotten rid of a lot of equipment so far in the last 8 years. Pickup trucks is kind of the last end of, there's a lot of older pickup trucks and 1-ton trucks out there that have seen their better day, and we just need to replace them. So.
Does that answer your question for you?
Did you replace any last year? No. Or how many years ago?
Yes, we received 2 pickup trucks. One was the patrol superintendent's truck, and then one was a truck that goes with our signing and center lining operations that has a special type of body on it. So there was 2 pickup trucks last year. Yep.
All right. And Supervisor Dell's wife.
Last year, meaning, sorry, 2021, not 2020.
Supervisor Dell's wife wants you to make sure when you do auction that old equipment off that you let him know the date of that. Cindy, you'll be thankful.
Some of them have been around since I was in high school.
Well, I won't stop Supervisor Dell. Any other questions for Mr. Every while he is up here? I do have one question. It's perhaps more Mr. Felt. ARPA money. I mean, we haven't done anything with that yet. Should we be, should we, some of these purchases, should we be directing some of that?
First of all, and the shorter answer is no, only in the respect that you'd have to make a justification how a highway truck is related to COVID. which therefore makes it a little more difficult. What we will be doing, we'll be getting a second ARPA payment in April of 2022 and having a discussion as to how the ARPA funds should be allocated and distributed. Having that discussion with the Finance Committee. My recommendation and general food of thought for the committee is this when we're talking about ARPA funds. Remember that the ARPA funds do have a certain, a certain string that still has to be met, whether it has through a loss of revenue or addressing some certain purpose like infrastructure. Those have to be done and part of a report that is then given to the federal government. What I would like the committee and the county board is to strongly consider the long-term effects of the ARPA dollars. And I'll say it in this way. We'll be receiving roughly about $4 million in ARPA funds if we combine last year and this year. If we were to purchase highway trucks, if we were to hire more social workers, if we were to do more roads, if we were to improve parks, those are all good and noble things to do. The issue that I have is then we've spent that money and there's less of a legacy that happens from that, in that we have just replaced we've replaced government spending with one source as opposed to our current source, which doesn't necessarily help us in the long run. I think that the county board needs to be looking at ways that we can use those funds to expand any type of economic development or any type of residential development. And the reason why I say that is we could put, and I'll use the most stark example, we could put $4 million towards Bremer Park and through the parks. And that does not generate us one dime of property tax. Yet if we did $4 million towards an expansion of a business that builds onto, expands their building, or more housing to be constructed, that will be property tax that we will generate, and we will generate forever. So when we look at how to spend these ARPA dollars, I would like the board and the Finance Committee to start looking at that strategy as opposed to doing it specifically to supplement some other government funding. And we can have that discussion at a later date, Mr. Chair.
All right, so the short answer is, go ahead, Supervisor Yonke.
Todd, does the amount of money spent for highway equipment and building roads and all that, doesn't that apply to what we get from the state for transportation funds?
The amount of money that we spend on doing road maintenance and road construction does. The amount of money that we spend on equipment doesn't go into that factor. And the money that we spend on equipment doesn't come out of the money that we spend on maintenance and construction. It comes out of the Highway Internal Service Fund. Does that answer your question, Scott? I guess so. And Paul, I hate to put you, it's probably not a discussion item for tonight's meeting, but there's many factors that go into the report from the county to report to the state to generate how much money we get for general transportation aids. Okay. It's not only highway department spending, but there's other departmental spending, and that gets put together up in the administration office. We're just most of the costs that go into that factor.
All right. Any other questions? All right. You may register your vote. $18 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries. All right. I'm in a Christmassy spirit here, Mr. Avery. I voted for it both times. You're very welcome. All right, moving on to the next.
A resolution approving the taking of tax deeds, 2017 real estate taxes. Fiscal impact statement, total due $5,218.62.
Do I have a motion? Supervisor Augustine, do I have a second? Supervisor Baker, do I have questions, discussion? Supervisor Lazansky?
So I'm wondering if someone can provide a synopsis of any communication with the homeowner. I'm speaking specifically of Judy Ratajczyk in latest communication with her. And then the other part of the question is what kind of steps happen moving forward?
Thank you. So first I would mention that the Mr. Reha has paid, I think as of today or yesterday. So that one's satisfied. Ms. Ratajczyk, I am in communication with Ms. Ratajczyk, and I can assure you that I'm trying my hardest to come up with a solution to get these taxes paid.
If I may, just for a moment, Mr. Wisnicki, for some of the supervisors, can you explain the general process and then the process of contacting the property owners as well, please?
So what happens is, and Michelle in her office does a great job at trying to be proactive and reach out to these folks to get their taxes paid. Once that doesn't happen, we get to tonight and you authorize me to take these parcels. I typically then, assuming we want to take the parcel, I'll record the tax deed before the end of the year. In special circumstances like this, where we have someone who's living there and I think I don't want to get her family circumstance, but she's living there and it's her home. We're trying to come up with some means that we can get these taxes paid. So I guess I'll go into that. I don't want to go into her specific circumstances, but I can assure you that I'm working with Ms. Ratajczyk, and obviously if that doesn't work out, meaning she's not doing the things we need to do to get these taxes paid, I would record the tax deed at that point, or perhaps I would encourage her to sell the property. I think it's a property where there's significant equity in this property. The other thing is, because she lives there, this is not a situation where the company would get all that money if we do take the property and sell it. This would be a situation where she would get that equity anyway. And certainly in her circumstance, I wouldn't recommend the company to take all that equity from her in any event. So,
and also as a process, just for county board information, is this is not a 1 year that they did not pay their property taxes. It is 3 consecutive years.
Right.
And so after the 3rd consecutive year, this is brought before us, where if we so choose, we can take ownership of the property. Just because we are able to take the property does not always mean that we will take the property. In fact, we prefer not to take the property of any person, because then once the county owns it, it's off the tax rolls. Therefore, I know that the county treasurer, I know our corporation counsel, that we have regular contacts with these property owners to try to encourage them to make payments towards their property taxes. And whole nother reason why is because while they're not paying their property taxes, they're paying an annual interest rate of 18%, a 1.5% per month. So it's in their best interest to try to pay those taxes as opposed to have an 18% penalty on those taxes that they owe. So in this respect, yes, we are working with the property owner. We will continue to work with the property owner. And I am hopeful that we can have a positive outcome.
Yes, Supervisor Lazansky.
So what all does the resolution mean then, if you can explain that to me?
Right, the board has authorized me to take that property by tax deed. In normal years, I would draw up that deed and I would record it with the register of deeds, and that property would be ours. Typically, I do that right after this meeting. I draw up the deed and record it. And this resolution authorized me to do that. In this circumstance, I'm gonna work with her a little longer, and as long as she's working in good faith to figure this out. And at some point here in spring, and the finance committee can hold me accountable if they're not happy with what I'm doing.
Authorize and direct are 2 different things. We authorize corporation counsel that we can take the property, but we are not directing the corporation counsel that he must take the property immediately.
Supervisor Vollenweider.
Just to clarify then, she's only liable to pay the oldest tax bill, correct? Not all 3 years.
That's correct, but we're working on a broader solution here, not just for, yes, if she came in tomorrow and paid the amount for 17, she'd be off the hook, but she'd be right back on the hook for next year.
Right.
Supervisor Lazansky.
Sorry for all the questions, but you know, I know this person's case as Jeff alluded to. Would there, if this passes, would there ever be, and if it goes to where you are going to take the property, would it come back to us at all, or that's a done deal?
We're gonna have to.
Let's assume that this person doesn't want to work with us and she's not taking any steps to rectify this problem, and I have to record the tax deed. We would record that tax deed, and then if they don't vacate, then I would have to evict her from the property, and then we would sell the property.
Other questions? Supervisor Swagel?
Now, you've discussed that one with the Bruce Rhea. Did he pay all 3 years or just 2017? That he's in the same boat, like you're saying, with the Ms. Ratajczyk could happen?
He, is my understanding, he paid up whatever he needed to for 17.
Not 18 or 19?
I guess I can't speak to that,
Okay.
but it was my belief that he paid up for 17.
Well, thank you, sir.
Mr. Wisnicki, or I don't know, maybe Mr. Felt, or how many people do we collect taxes from a year?
How many people?
Yeah, how many people have to?
There's roughly about, I believe, 9,000 parcels of property within the county.
And all but one is paid.
At this present time, yes, sir.
All right.
Pretty good collection rate.
Well, it's a pretty good collection rate, but my suspicion would be that if you don't collect, if you don't do your bill collecting, I wonder how many we might have next year.
We typically year to year have anywhere from half a dozen to 12 at the start. And then when it gets to the end of the year, we have 0 or maybe 1 or 2.
Kind of like any, yes, Supervisor Lukes.
That's not entirely true, because until they get to that 3rd year, we have a number of them in our township that are.
But only one has gotten to the 3rd year to this point.
Correct.
And my point is that if you don't collect, I think it's just kind of like law enforcement or anything else when there's not enforcement. And if people, start to think there's not enforcement, I think you invite more.
No, we will collect, Mr. Chair.
Good.
My record is 100%.
Well, you can't get much better than that. All right. Any other questions? All right. We're ready to register our vote. Supervisor Kinnard? All in favor? Motion carries. No ordinances read at previous county board meeting. Do we have any communications from other counties?
Yes, 3.
Okay.
From Douglas County, Badger Care eligibility cliff elimination. From Sawyer County, affirmation to denounce healthcare choice discrimination against citizens by Sawyer County government, businesses, and employers. And Winnebago County, support the commitment to Veteran Support and Outreach Act.
Thank you. Do we have any Kewaunee County events other than Christmas party? How many are coming to that? Anybody besides just me? Okay, few of you. All right, what's that? All right, well, keep my bar tab lower then. All right, yes. I would have drawn more of you. All right. Yes, Supervisor Swagel.
They're talking, I don't have exactly, I didn't write down when it is, but the winter park is, Scott, opening up.
Did you want to go tubing this weekend?
Not I know, I don't plan to.
The 28th, it's opening up.
All right.
From 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. through December 30th.
Very good.
We have snow.
Excellent. Okay. So, any other events? All right, comments from the chair. Just a reminder, we're doing good on our paperwork for elections, with the exception of, I believe, one hasn't gotten his candidate form in yet. Supervisor Dell, if you could see the clerk before you leave tonight, that'd be greatly appreciated. Then moving on to the next meeting dates, we have January 25th is set. We also have February 8th set. However, the clerk has informed me that there is a conflict. Is that correct on that February 8th date?
Correct. That's WCA legislative days.
Okay. So what if we were to move it to February 15th?
I think that might be primary night.
All right. Nothing's ever easier. Nothing's ever easy. Could we go to February 1st? Oh, that's going to be tough. How about February 22nd then? That puts them really close together again. 14th is Valentine's Day. We can tell what an old romantic Supervisor Poppy is. Any of you have a date night on February 14th or? Okay, apparently all of you are. Apparently all of you have a really great romantic marriage, all right, or whatever. So Valentine's Day, February 14th. You can't make that, okay. Supervisor Romden does have a date. Hopefully with his wife. How about February 7th? February 7th? No? Is there a day when you can make it, Supervisor Romden? Well, I think we're going to have to do February 7 or 14. That's kind of, unless.
Yep, so they'll leave the 7th.
They'll leave on the 7th. Oh, good night. Well, you mean you got to be there on the 8th.
Mr. Chair, we could find out by January if there's enough items for a meeting in February.
Oh, we'll have a meeting in February, I would expect. It'd be pretty hard to see skipping February. So on January 4th, you would be able to tell me if which date would work?
Well, our original date of the 15th.
So the 15th, I can't make 16th. So 15th would be a possibility, maybe.
If there's not a primary.
So why don't we potentially set it at the 15th then and deal with it next month? So do I have a motion to move it to the 15th? Supervisor Vollenweider, second by Dell. Any discussion on that? Shouldn't be. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Let's hope we don't have to deal with that next month. Then we go on to March 15. Do I have a motion for that? That is spring break, but Supervisor Romden motion, Supervisor Lazansky second. It is spring break, but I don't know if there's any spring breakers here, so I think we'll be okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Excellent. Yes, Supervisor Romden?
If we go to the 15th, is there any possibility of starting at 5 instead of 6?
Makes no difference.
Supervisor Dell? Will that make you make you more than 5 minutes late?
Either one is okay. It's just
okay. We should be able to do 5. Do we want to make that motion here tonight? Or wait till January?
Sure.
All right. Come back at us in January, Supervisor Romden. All right.
I'm trying to work around my grandson's basketball schedule.
Well, all right. Well, we got one more schedule to work around here. Boy. All right. Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Baker, second by Augustine. I saw a flinch. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.